All right, I'm testing a new platform called StreamYard, and this is Convocourses podcast. I'm going to do about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes to test this out and also to inform you guys of um, a career move I recently made. Haven't really talked about this, but um, about 3 months ago, I was working as a cybersecurity consultant, and that's much different from an information system security officer. So, in the past 3 4 months, I made a big move. Well, not really a big move. I mean, it's not a big move for me. I mean, I've done both jobs before, but what I want to do is kind of compare the two, kind of give you an idea of like what the differences are between a cybersecurity consultant and what I'm going to be doing with information system security officer work, and like what's the daily life of both of those things, how they compare, and kind of like give you an idea of like which one you should choose. Before I start, you should know that I own a site called Convocourses where I teach cybersecurity compliance and how to get in this field as a cybersecurity person. I've been doing this for 20 years, doing cybersecurity and all forms of security, as well as some IT information technology stuff, like being a system admin or network administrator, stuff like that. I've done a little bit of all that stuff, but my specialty is really in security compliance. And so that's what I teach people to do. And people ask me on YouTube, on TikTok questions, and I'll just go ahead and answer them. And by the way, if you have any questions during this, feel free to ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them. Sometimes we have such a great community that they'll actually answer the questions on my behalf. There's things I don't know, so some other subject matter expert will jump in and then answer those questions, and those are my favorite times on Convocourses, because that's what Convocourses in my mind is about the community and us coming together, figuring things out. Okay, so I wanted to tell you, recently I made a huge move. I was working at a major telecommunications company that does cybersecurity on the side. They have like a branch that does cybersecurity, and I did it because it was a great opportunity. One of my former coworkers gave me um, they referred me and brought me into the company. It was a great company. They had great benefits. It was some of the best benefits I've had outside of the military. It was decent pay, and the only probably bad thing was that there was a lot of travel, and that eventually was the thing that got me out of there. And it was kind of stressful too, and I was having too many personal issues that happened at the time that I was working there. I worked there for about 2.5, 3 years, and I was doing cybersecurity consulting for them. So what we would do is we would be we'd bring our expertise to smaller companies. We'd go to, and it's a lot of companies and banks and hospitals and healthcare industries that you probably use, to be honest with you. That, I mean, some of them I was surprised, like, damn, I use this. We were doing security compliance for them. And the security compliance, well, it wasn't just security compliance. It was basically a bunch of we would do a bunch of risk assessments, and those risk assessments would be things like be we had like 15 different risk assessments, so 12 to 15 different risk assessments depending on what they chose. So we would do things like physical security assessments. We would do, of course, network security assessments. There was like three of those. We did cloud-based security assessments. Um, we did wireless security assessments. We take all of those and we would give them an overall view of what their security looks like. And then we would prioritize where the major risks were. And then we would talk to the C-level or director or upper level management to say, hey, this is where you should focus your energy because this is where we see the most risk. And the purpose of that was to reduce their security, any kind of vulnerabilities they have, and they can focus all their time, money, and energy and resources to that highest level of risk in their organization. That's what I was doing, and it wasn't too bad. I actually liked it. I fit right in over there. We would do these reports, which were really easy for me. The only challenging thing I found was sometimes the clients were a bit difficult to work with. And it wasn't that they didn't know what they were doing or something like that. It was just very high strung because cybersecurity, um, it can be very stressful because you're dealing with if you have a vulnerability, a major vulnerability, and you have to take that to the CEO and say, "Hey, we have this, we have a bunch of legacy systems that are, in this area here." There's a lot of stress because you don't want to be the person that to the bearer of bad news, and we'd find those things and we'd say, "Hey, you have this stuff going on," and there was just a lot of stress with that. That's probably the hardest part of the whole thing. The travel wouldn't have been a big deal if I hadn't had so many personal issues happening with my family, my kids, and everything that just all happened at once. So I had to, and unfortunately, had to leave because I actually really love the people and everything. What did my daily life look like? We were mostly going off East Coast time for me because that's where most of my clients were. They'd give us like 2 or 3 clients, um, and you would work directly with them. So most of your day was coordinating the scans and the assessments that you'd have to do. If you had to go to their site, you'd have to coordinate that, and they expect you to go do that on your own. Like, it was very self-directed, where you have the client, like, you'd run the meetings with them, you'd coordinate when you're going to go there, you coordinate your how many hours or how much time it would take to get there and who you're going to meet and all of that stuff you'd have to do. And then the scans, we had a separate scan team. We'd work with the scan team, we work with the program managers, we work with them, and we put together this report to deliver on a quarterly basis and sometimes annually. It depends on what kind of assessment it was, because obviously you wouldn't do like a physical assessment every quarter because that wouldn't really make any sense because stuff doesn't change. But anyway, so that's what we would do. Is mostly meetings and coordination and doing scans and reviewing the scans and then writing reports. That was your whole day as a cybersecurity consultant at this organization I was with, where the main thing we did was deliver these reports, and we would do really most of it was risk assessment type stuff. And I was very familiar with that because in the Department of Defense, we do a lot of security assessments and stuff. So that's very different from where my main um, core specialties are, which is security compliance. We would dabble a little bit in security compliance, like every now and then we I would help them do like a PCI compliant PCI audit or something like that, or we'd say, okay, here's how your system would fit into a NIST 800, or here's how your system would fit into CIS controls. You do a little bit of that, but that wasn't really what it was separate from what we were doing. It was mostly risk assessment type stuff. So seeing where the risks are and determining that. So now that brings us to the next thing, which is information system security officer. So, information system security officer is more in compliance, the compliance space, security compliance. And security compliance is making sure an organization is lined up with regulations, laws, industry standards. And that doesn't have to be the federal government, which is mostly what I work with. It can be with hospitals. Hospitals have a certain standard that they're supposed to meet, one of which is called HIPAA, where they have to make sure that they're protecting their patients' healthcare information and their digital records for the healthcare and stuff like that. Another example of industry standards would be PCI compliance. That's protection of credit cards. So whenever you're at a store and you're using your credit cards, they're supposed to have a separate network for those point of sale devices, so that it doesn't touch, like, say, the Wi-Fi that's for the staff or for guests to log in. So that has to be a separate protected network so that the credit card data is protected. So separate from your other networks. That's just one of the things you have to do. Another thing you have to do for PCI compliance is have the adequate documentation for the security of the system, like making sure that we have network diagrams and making sure you have asset an inventory of all the assets, things like that. Those are all the types of things that you would have to do for PCI, and those are just two examples. But you've got CIS compliance, you've got ISO 27001 compliance. You got many different countries have their own security compliance, and different industries, like, have their own compliance. So my specialty is in NIST 800 um, security compliance. NIST 800 is what the federal government has created and adopted as the main source of security controls. Security controls is a set of security features that protect the organization's primary assets. That means like your main server that has all the social security numbers on it, your main server that has all the secret data on it, the main server that's holding all the maps of different parts of the world. That's what you call an asset. So those are just some of the examples of, and those are some of the difference. Now, one of the things that what it looks like from on a day-to-day basis for an ISO, just to kind of compare this versus the consulting I was doing. So it's also a lot of meetings. Security is a lot of coordination. Cybersecurity is a lot of coordination with different organizations, because you're having to meet with different subject matter experts. Like you're not necessarily the person who's locking down that Windows server. That's going to be a server type person. Yeah, that's going to be a person like a system admin who's specializes in Linux, Red Hat, network administration, and Windows 2019 Active Directory servers. So you are going to coordinate with them. So in ISO, that's what they do. They're coordinating with the firewall guy, the privacy person. They're coordinating with all these different people to make sure that the organization has a certain level of security. And so it is a lot of meetings. It's a lot of meetings with a lot of different people. And that's probably the main difference between the meetings. Like an ISO is going to have a meeting with all kinds of people throughout the organization, one organization, whereas a consultant is going to have a meeting with just a few people at different organizations. Like me, I had like 3 or 4 clients at any given time, and I would have to coordinate with there's like a main point of contact I would talk to, big 2 or 3 main points of contact, and every now and then I'd meet like a C-level exec, but I was talking to 3 or 4 different organizations. Whereas an ISO is talking maybe one organization, and there might be other sub organizations, but they're all one. You're talking about many people in that organization. So you're going really deep in all of the details and stuff, and making sure that all the securities is in place. Now, it's not like an enforcement role. Typically, you are more like a news reporter. And what I mean by that is a lot of people think that you're the police and you're going to come and busting down doors and saying, "Hey, we got to secure this server." That's not really your job. Like, you might point things out, but the person who has to be the enforcer is going to be the management, because they're the ones. Things come down from management, so they have to be the ones to enforce that stuff. Now, if you happen to be the voice piece, the mouthpiece to tell them, "Hey, the CIO just said this," you're just the reporter. You're just reporting to them, "Hey, this is what happened. We have to obey what is going on with this organization's policies. Here's what we have to do." So that's the main differences between a security consultant and an information system security officer. The reason why I quit my job as a consultant and went over to, and now I'm going to back to information system security officers, has more to do with not the work per se. It's more like the travel. Like, the organization I was at was paid really good, had one of the best benefit packages I've ever had, but it was too much travel, and I had too much stuff going on. So, and I had too many clients. It was getting a little stressful. Plus, I had family stuff I had to deal with. So that's the reason why I transitioned over. And now I'm going to somewhere where it's a little bit more. It's going to be a better fit for me and my new family situation. So that's kind of what's going on. Okay, I've got some questions here. Let me see, from Mike. Thanks, Mike, for your question. I really appreciate that. And Mike says, he says, quick question. The ISSM role coming from being an ISO, what's your suggestion? Quick question. ISSM ISSM role coming for? Are you going to be doing an ISSM role from being an ISO? I'm assuming that's what you mean. So you were an ISO and now you're about to be an ISSO. Sorry, you were an ISSO, you're about to be an ISSM. That's trying to interpret your question there. Any suggestions? So yeah. So the biggest difference between these two roles is that one is a manager, information systems security manager. You're going to have more of you're going to have even more meetings. I'm just going to tell you like the differences. So an ISO is more like they both have a lot of meetings, but an ISO has to be more in the weeds because an ISO has to be able to say, give me an example of an issue. So a vulnerability comes down. The vulnerability is let's make something up. A vulnerability is a 0-day exploit on Windows 2019 or something, right? And now the ISO gets wind of this, and that comes from the vulnerability team. Now they have to meet directly with the vulnerability team to figure out what's going on with this thing. And they might have to spend some time researching what this 0-day exploit is. What's the criticality of it? Like, how quickly do we need to fix this thing? They have to be in the weeds. So they have to probably go to the CVEs and then figure out what this affects. And they have to probably look at like a list of all the systems that this is going to touch and how quickly can we fix this. So in ISO is more in the weeds in that they have to know like what is going on on a technical level. They have to get more in the weeds and be more technical, if you get what I mean. They might not have to touch the system. A lot of times they're not the ones implementing the security controls, but they're coordinating with the people who have to implement those security controls. Now, compared to that, to an information system security manager, their meetings are more with upper level people. So they're dealing with stuff that's more broad and stuff that's touching the entire organization and making sure you have enough, making sure the security team has all the resources that they need, all the time and resources that they need to do their work. So you're going to have the same amount of meetings or more, but they're going to be with upper level management from other fields. Like you're going to be talking to the IT manager, the information technology manager, who the network manager, the network engineering manager. You're going to be coordinate with them, and you guys are going to be talking about like resources. How many resources do we have to do this work? Okay, we just had this 0-day on Windows 2019. Do you guys have the resources and time to do this? How much time do you guys need to actually get this done? So you're talking about like on a broader scale, how do we manage the resources that our team needs to get this job done, and can we get it done effectively in a reasonable amount of time? And your main job is managing expectations to upper level management, the C-level execs, the directors, and all that stuff, managing their expectation. That is your main job, as well as taking care of the people who are you work for the ISOs. Like your job is working for the ISOs, managing the expectations of upper level management. So you're still in cybersecurity, but it's more of a management. You're not in the weeds. You're not having you're not ever touching any technology. Whereas an ISO, they might have to touch something at some point. Like an ISO, they might have to touch the EMAS system where they're inputting information there. They might have to mess around with creating. They might have to create a security policy. Might help create the security policy, review the security policy. They might look at audit logs. They might help enable audit logs. They might be the person who's doing threat detection and stuff. The managers, they're not doing that kind of stuff. They're working on resources for the information system security officers. So it's a great move because ISSMs are legit managers. And so they're typically paid a lot more. They're paid more. And if you move, if you're a first time manager, you should get a pay bump. But if you have been doing a management for a while, you get a significant pay bump. Like if you've been doing it for like a year or two, then you'll be able to, like, if ever you move or those are the guys who eventually become directors. That's the path directly to directors and C level execs and things like that who gets paid a lot of money. So that's really good. That's a really good move. If that's the case, if that's what you're doing, then that's awesome, man. And Mike says, got it. ISSO. I worked with EMAS and CSAM and Tenable. Yep, Tenable, Nessus, and all that kind of stuff. That's right. Yep, exactly. You got it. They're more hands-on and touching stuff, whereas managers, they're going to ask about, hey, you have access to EMAS? Okay, cool, great. They might look in there since, okay, let's make sure that the system security plan is there. All right. Any problems with the system security plan? Okay, good, there's no problems, let's go. Or hey, does the new guy have access to EMAS? Does the new guy have access to Tenable? Okay, cool. Or let me help out, make sure that let me coordinate with the person who controls access to Tenable to make sure the new guy has it. Okay, the new guy, we just have some people leave. Let's make sure that person is no longer has access to EMAS or Tenable, stuff like that. That's the manager. They're not like putting things into EMAS or running the scans necessarily. I mean, sometimes I've been with some managers who did do that kind of stuff, but it was because they wanted to do it. And they were very sharp, very technical, and they wanted to do it. And they don't, but they totally didn't have to, and they had other things to do, by the way. All right, let me shift gears. If you guys have any questions, go ahead. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm testing out this new platform. That's why it all looks a little bit different. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to ask me. In the meantime, let me show you that I have a book out called RMF ISSO, where it walks you through. It's a bird's eye view of what NIST 800 is all about, and it's very quick. And this is actually the audio version, which is only like 1 hour long. And then also I've got a deeper dive into the NIST 800 security controls, but I'm not hitting every single control. What I do is I hit the families and give you a practical understanding of what the families are and how you navigate those families, an interpretation of the families of controls. And I focus from an ISSO's perspective. What parts of that family do you really need to know? That's the kind of stuff that I'm focusing on there. And another thing you guys should know, if you didn't know already, is I have a podcast. Here it is right here. The podcast is, I'm doing the podcast right now. So the type of stuff that you hear me talk about here is the kind of stuff that I actually is going to be on the audio. But the difference is on a podcast, you could just be in your car on your commute and listen to it, or when you're cleaning or something like that, you can actually just listen to it, listen to our conversation as you're doing your thing. So that's the good thing about doing a podcast. I actually really like podcasts. I'm listening to one right now. I'm learning a new language, and I really like it. Okay, let me see. There's another question here from Mike. He says, "Can I book you for a consultant for my ISSM role?" You know what? I'm actually in the middle of a couple of other consultations. You can email me. Feel free to email me, and I'll see if I can find some time for you. I'm not saying no, but let me see what I can do. I'm going to send you my contact. My contact is scrolling across the bottom there. It's contact@convocourses.com if you're interested in getting some kind of consulting and stuff like that. I'm getting back into the work field, so I'm not going to be able to do as much consulting as I was doing before, because my hours are going to get tapped. But hey, who knows? Like, maybe we can do it before I actually start my job. Right now, I'm going through the background investigation process. Okay, I got another questions from Mr. Fernandez. He says, "So I'm getting my bachelor's degree in cybersecurity in December. I'm currently working on working in physical security for government contracting. So I'm dealing with classified documents and DoD things. Will I be able to?" Okay, let me see the rest of this question. To get an entry level ISSO, I think you mean ISSO job. In your opinion, yes or no? Okay, so Ludwig, let me give you an example, and I hope that my example can give you an idea. First of all, short answer is yes. Okay. I know this because I actually started off in physical security myself. So I was a security forces member in the Air Force, and basically what I was a weapon expert. Like I don't even know if they have that it was called 3POX1. That was my AFSC. It's a specialty code that they have had in the military at that time. I don't know if I haven't been following it, but basically what I did was I was a weapons specialist, and I guarded planes. I guarded, if the president came in to our base or whatever, I'd do that. I'd be on that detail. Um, Not much personnel security, to be honest. It was mostly guarding resources. And then I also did some law enforcement. So I knew a lot about the UCMJ, use of force, all that kind of, weapons training, combat training, all that. Worked with the Army and the Marines and all branches and different countries, security people, but it was mostly physical security. And we call it cross train. I cross trained from physical security to cybersecurity. There's a lot of crossover. I was surprised to learn that. I'll just tell you a few things that are going to help you going from physical security over into cybersecurity, into IT in general. Number one, you're going to have a very sound understanding of security overall, because it's not really that much different when you get into cybersecurity. It's just a lot of more layers, and it's more complex because you got defense in depth. Physical security still applies in cybersecurity, which is crazy, but when you think about it, it's common sense. If anybody can touch a system, then they own it. You can own a system. You can take the hard drive out, put it in another device. You can use password crackers. You could use oh man, you could do forensics tools on it, and then extract all the bits on it and figure out what people try to delete. As a matter of fact, that's what forensics is all about. And speaking of forensics, some of the laws that pertain to you, like when you're talking about chain of custody, when you're talking about um, making sure that things aren't tampered with during the investigations, all those things apply. So some of the laws still apply. What else applies? Man, physical security checks, physical security assessments, it's the concept is similar, and actually it's still used in cybersecurity. You have to still do physical security to make sure that the facility and the room that the information system resides in is protected, so that all that stuff still applies. So it is going to help you out. And the main thing is that if you dealt with classified documentation before, and if you have a security clearance, all of that will also help you um, to get an entry level job in cybersecurity, if specifically in information system security officer, but any kind of entry level position, because you have a security clearance. If you have one, that helps. And a lot of people confuse like security. They think that if you're in cybersecurity, you have to have a security clearance. No, that's not the case. Two different things. The security, they should just call it a clearance. It's very confusing. A clearance just does a background check on you to make sure that you are trustworthy, to make sure that you don't have any criminal background that might cause a conflict of interest where you're working. Like a bank doesn't want somebody who robbed a bank. You know what I mean? Like, it's stuff like that. A hospital probably doesn't want somebody who had malpractice. It's stuff like there's certain criminal things that, not to say that if you had some kind of, you had a case on you in the past that you couldn't work in cybersecurity. It's not what they're saying. It's basically there's certain things that cause a conflict of interest. So I have to do a background check on you to make sure that there's nothing that might allow you to be exploited, or something that deems you as untrustworthy to do that particular job. So if you have a clearance, that really helps out a lot. If you've handled classified information before, that actually helps you quite a bit as well, because some people don't have any experience with that and they don't know how that world works. But you knowing how that world works, that helps you quite a bit. The main thing that you need to focus on now is the technical aspect, because me going from physical security over to cybersecurity, that was the biggest challenge, is learning all the terminology, learning information technology, learning how a computer works. learning how RAM, CPU, and storage all works together, learning how to protect those components of information system. Those are the main things. All the layers and the minutia of learning networks, how the networks work, how you protect those networks, stuff like that, ports, protocols, and services. Those are the things that you need to be really focusing your mind on. The security stuff will come very naturally to you. So the answer to your question is yes, it will help you to get an entry level job when you get that bachelor's degree. Only thing I would recommend that you do while you're in school, and this is what I tell everybody, is try to get experience if you can, hands-on technical experience if you can. That means if you're whatever college you're going to, or if you happen to be in the military or wherever you're at, try to get hands-on. Like if you see we call them work group managers fixing a computer, ask if you can help them out. If they will allow you to help them to fix that computer, whether it's updating virus definitions, updating the security patches, whatever it is, like even the simplest thing possible, even if it's putting the router in and plugging it in or whatever, you will be able to put that on your resume. And the experience is what they really want to see. The degree is great, certifications are great, but the experience is what they really want to see. Another thing is I would highly recommend that you, if you have the time, if you have the cycles to do it, some people do not, is to get a certification while you're working on your degree. Degree takes a pretty long time, and sometimes the degree helps you to get the degree. If your college or wherever you're going to has a degree, a certification program, I would go ahead and take it. It's not a waste of your time, especially if you get the CompTIA, any of the CompTIA ones. If you get any kind of cloud certification, if you get any kind of networking certifications, those are all going to help you out a lot on your resume. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, I've got another question here. It says, Mr. Fernandez says, and I'm Security Plus certified, but I don't have the most experience with physical hardware. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, go ahead and get as much experience as you can with any aspect of information technology. At this point, since you're new, anything will help you out. Like whether it's help desk type stuff, whether you're updating, like I said, virus signatures, the reason why I keep bringing those up, because those are kind of the simplest things that kind of come up constantly over time. Like you've probably done it before. You just don't, it's something we do often, so often that we don't even think about it. But that is something you can literally put on your resume. You just need to know how to articulate it. And speaking of articulation, just to do a little transition here, I'm working on a book right now, a new book that's going to tell you how to actually break down a resume, I have a course on this already. So if you're interested, I'm not trying to cram anything down anybody's throat or anything, but I'm working on a book that's a lot cheaper, that it'll be about $20 or something like that. It'll have downloadable templates. It's essentially this right here. This course right here is something I've been using for a long time. And because of this, I haven't been without a job. I've this thing works, like this process that I've been doing. Basically, all I did was to say, okay, how am I getting all these jobs? I literally get like 10 offers a day between LinkedIn, messages on LinkedIn, emails, calls. I'm literally getting anywhere from, it's not as much as it used to be before COVID. And now we have some kind of a downturn in the economy. So it's not as many as it used to be, but it's at least 6 messages a day I get for different jobs. And I'm just constantly getting inundated with these opportunities. And so all I did was I condensed exactly how I'm able to do this into a course. And I'm going to make this into a book that tells you how to articulate any kind of cybersecurity experience into a workable template that is marketable to employers. So that is what I'm doing, and it's coming. I'm working on it. I actually finished the first draft. I'm getting it edited right now as we speak. The first book is going to be a 3 to 4 book series where I'm going to break down not only how to market your resume and not only how to create the resume, not only a template so that you can use my as a sample and other people's resume as a sample, but I'm also, what I'm going to do is expand it out into other books that tells you how to get remote jobs, because people ask me about that a lot. and I'm going to do one where it's talking about the different categories of cybersecurity, because that's something I found that people, the questions that they ask, I can tell they don't really know that there's different aspects of cybersecurity. So that is what I'm doing. Mike says, I bought this course from you. You need to update it. Oh, okay. Yes, updates are on the way. I'm working on a whole bunch of stuff right now. So that's when I'm not on these calls. That's what I'm doing. Okay. If there's no more questions, guys, I'm going to call it quits for the day, and I'll see you guys next time. See you on the next one. Thanks for jumping on this one. Thanks, Mike, for all your questions. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the questions. And thanks, Mike. Thanks for the update, Mike. I will get on that. I appreciate you. Later.